everybody, and welcome to another show with HRN, and of course your host Alex Grichuhin. So we have a lot of topics that we're going to be discussing. Our two main topics is tips for traveling with COPD during the holidays, and how could traveling in the colder months be different with those with COPD as opposed to traveling during the summer months. And of course, our second topic is going to be, we're going to look at a therapy called with cycling, basically. And do we have a bicycle we're going to be using?
We do not, but I wanted you to give the tip, the benefits of it.
The benefits of it, okay. I'll show you something that you can do in the chair. You know, something that you can do in a chair as you're kind of trying to figure out exactly what I'm trying to ask you to do. So, anyways.
But Alex, the dreaded state of the world news.
The what?
Dreaded state of the world. Things are getting quite hairy in other countries regarding pneumonia. So, do you want to offer some quick tips to everybody and maybe fight some bad habits that we've come across since post-COVID?
Yeah, and that being said, don't forget to like us on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube, and follow us on those as well as subscribe. That does help us out quite a bit. There is a lot of things happening in the world, of course, as we know it. Some of the most, I would say, smarter ideas is try to get off of your cell phone and putting it down for like a little bit, but sometimes it's a habit and it's very, very hard to do that. There was something I watched this morning at 4 o'clock in the morning, and I always wake up at 4. I always do. Anyways, I woke up and I was just watching something as I'm waking up, and it was going over another strategy on how to quit smoking. And when you quit smoking, there's a lot of, it's not one therapy that works for everybody. It's not one technique that works for everybody. There's a lot of different types of techniques, different strategies that can actually help you quit smoking. You know, I used to be a smoker. There's a lot of people, a lot of clinicians that they used to be a smoker, and what I did was I did something a little different. I used a negative reinforcement with a positive reinforcement. And that strategy is pretty good because it worked on me and it worked on a lot of people. But there are a lot of other strategies. This gentleman's strategy that he was showing on YouTube, which I thought it was pretty darn decent. The strategy he was showing is, first he was emphasizing that smoking is more of a mental problem than a physical problem. And that is true, actually. The other part is the first 3 days, when you first quit smoking, the first 3 days are the hardest. It's always the hardest, the first 3 days, okay? It's always the hardest. If you're going without smoking after, let's say, a week and you still have that urge, well, that's a mental problem, not a physical problem. So your brain is so triggered of every time something happens, let's say a nuance, let's just say something like a family member or maybe somebody in traffic. Good, this is a good one actually. Somebody in traffic is honking at you and creating a little bit of road rage and hazards. And the first thing that you want to do is calm down, and the first thing that you think of to calm down is a cigarette instead of just taking a deep breath, counting down to 10. You know, there's a lot of strategies, but his strategy was to focus this on a mental scenario. And anyways, as I mentioned, smoking cessations. Would anybody that's watching me right now, would anybody like me to go over some smoking cessation therapies? I mean, that is something that I do.
I think that'd be a really good help.
Yeah,
for a lot of people.
You know,
both in pulmonary and cardiac.
Yeah, I can go over 5 different types of strategies, at least 5. I can go over 5 strategies, and all I would suggest is taking a lot of notes. there was like for instance, if I did something like this, okay, if I said something like this, everybody, and mind you, if you don't know what I'm talking about, don't worry, okay, I'm gonna make sure I explain myself. If I said that respiratory muscle training increases lung functions, okay? If I said respiratory muscle training increases lung functions, the first thing that you're thinking of is I'm going to reverse my lung disease completely. And, this strategy will, if I'm showing it, it obviously has to work because I'm showing it. First, not all therapies that we do on each and every person works for one another. So that's why we have 1,700 exercises and techniques, not one. Because if I show this one, it might work on this person, this person, this person, but you might have that one person it didn't work on. So then I would try to change that strategy for that person, but not the other people that it's working out for. Does that make sense? Okay. So let me give out a test question, okay, that I usually drill with my patients. A test question, a very simple test question. And like I said, if you don't know the answer, all this information I'm giving is on My New Lungs. It is. So if you're on My New Lungs and you're actually using My New Lungs, not skipping ahead or doing something ridiculous, if you're actually utilizing My New Lungs, this should be easy. If you never used My New Lungs or if you never did research on, I'm not just talking about lung disease, but therapies that will help benefit you with exercise. If I bring up therapies, the first thing that usually comes to mind is, okay, elliptical, treadmill, and stationary bike, and that's what a lot of people think of. They never think about, okay, I have a breathing issue. So I'm going to strengthen up my legs. Just think about this for a second. I'm going to strengthen up my legs. I'm going to get it really strong. Okay? So then now me standing up is very easy. Now I'm going to strengthen up even more, let's say. Or I'm going to keep it maintained at that very high strength. But you're wondering why you get so short of breath more than before when you're exercising every day to get those legs very strong. What you forget to implement, and that's why pulmonary rehab is specifically states pulmonary rehab. It's the rehabilitation of your lungs. Not the rehabilitation of your legs. Okay, it's the rehabilitation of your lungs. So a lot of people, they'll jump on a treadmill, elliptical, they'll start doing weight training, and they're wondering why they're getting more short of breath. Because they're focusing on a muscle, and that muscle, that weak muscle, let's say, that weak muscle only needed to consume, let's say, 2 cups of oxygen to fuel it. Now you're growing a stronger muscle that's going to take 4 cups of oxygen to fuel that muscle. And you're only breathing super shallow because you've been working on your legs, but you haven't been working on respiratory muscle training, and you're wondering why you get sort of short of breath so easily. So let me bring up this test question. If you know the answer, great. If you don't know it, I would highly suggest going into My New Lungs or joining into a pulmonary rehab program that really focuses on the lung disease, talking about the lung disease and different therapies that will help you. Okay, different therapies that will help you, not just pursed lip breathing. Pursed lip breathing is one therapy. It's one therapy out of 1,700 that we do here. Pursed lip breathing is just a tool to use. So let me bring out this test question. You have somebody who is very skinny, is very weak, doesn't walk very much, doesn't get up very much, is very weak, gets very short of breath very quickly. Okay? Anyways, this person consumes 1,000 calories a day. As soon as they stand up, they can only walk for about 2 minutes, maybe a minute, before the person has to sit down and rest. They feel like once they've walked for 1 or 2 minutes, they've just they don't understand why they get so short of breath, and they're thinking their oxygen is the problem. What most likely is the problem with somebody like that, with that information the way it is? Just the information I laid out. The person is malnourished, the person is very weak, and only consumes 1,000 calories. Person is trying to walk and walk far, but the person cannot. They run out of fuel in their body in a sense. What's the person's problem? It's a very easy answer.
While we wait for the answers to come in, it sounds like they don't have any energy. Because
that's absolutely correct. 1,000 calories won't do anything.
Yeah.
Yeah. A human being needs to consume, the daily intake for a human being is 2,000 calories. What did anybody else say up there?
Karen said malnutrition.
Malnutrition. But what is that? Yeah, it means that there's not enough calories. You're consuming 1,000 calories, and you're wondering why you don't have enough energy to go further. It's because you're not consuming enough. It's not rocket science. If somebody maintained the same diet, and let's say that same diet was 2,000 calories, okay, which is the average daily consumption of calories. That's not for each and every person. Like myself, I have to consume at least 4,000 to 5,000 calories a day, or else I lose too much weight too quickly. Somebody else with a low metabolism might only need, with a very low metabolism, might need only 1,000 calories to satisfy their body. Anyways,
it's interesting you bring that up. Just to
go ahead.
As a thought, because you have all these crash diets that everybody says works. I just don't see the benefit of them, and that's why I personally hate crash diets. Mm-hmm. Sorry, I bumped my mic. I hate the crash diets. Because it's like you should only be consuming like 1,500 to 700 calories a day. It's like,
and then you take the best athletes in the world and you tell them, oh, only consume 1,000 calories, and you know what they'll say? He says, you're joking, right? Because there's no way in the world I can be an athlete with only consuming 1,000 calories. It won't work. It all depends on the individual, of course. But yes, the person is not consuming enough. Why is the person so out of breath? Why is the person so out of breath? The energy. We forget that work of breathing versus energy, we think they're all tied into each other, okay? We all think they're all tied into each other, and they're not. Work of breathing is it's a consequence to an exercise. The more I work out, the more out of breath I'm going to be. But out of breath is so vague, because when we think out of breath, we think the person is completely out of breath. Like they cannot catch their breath. But when you quantify it, it's different. It's very, very, very different. When you quantify it, 10 being the worst out of breath, 0 being the least out of breath. How out of breath are you? I'm at a 4. Is that person out of breath? Well, according to the scale, yeah, they are, but they're not completely out of breath. They have an increased work of breathing. Then somebody says, I asked, how out of breath are you? 10 being the worst, 0 being the least. They say, I'm at a 10. Well, how could you be at a 10 if you're able to talk? Okay, maybe a 5, maybe a 5. Well, that's different than a 10, isn't it? Okay, so when you're watching this show, and let's say you're participating with therapy, you always want to take notes. Trying to memorize everything is very, very tough. Very, very tough. I'm in a pilot program that, for those, I'm training to be a pilot. Flying airplanes and jets and everything like that. So I'm in a pilot program. And the material on there, just to become a pilot, the material that you have to remember is insanity. It is insane. Take these books and multiply them by 4. And all that information, I'll take all these books here, this thickness of books right here, and multiply it by 4. I mean, it is just amazing of how much knowledge you need just to fly an airplane.
Well, now here's my question. How much of that is actually of the airplane itself versus like wind and,
well,
air?
FAA has different standards, and you have to abide by those standards at any time. But we want to know how an airplane works, how it functions, every nick and cranny, every bolt, everything. But you also want to know what is, how fast, how fast is a stall on an airplane? How slow do you have to be, to stall an airplane before it starts reeking back and kind of making that like leaf pattern in a sense. But now let's take this. Let's take So to become a pilot, obviously you have to dedicate a few years to it, of course. Okay?
Only a little bit.
Makes a lot of sense, right? To become a diver, you have to go through a lot of courses, and they won't let you in the water by yourself. You have to go through a lot of courses to become a diver. I'm a diver. I'm an advanced diver. I'm a master diver. Okay, so I dive quite often. All right, I would like to fly often too to locations. But anyways, now let's take something like and not putting anybody down. Okay, that's definitely not what I'm doing. I just want you to understand something. So you have an airplane that can crash into buildings and stuff like that, let's say. So, you want to make sure you know what you're doing, right, to save your life and everyone else's life. A lot of certifications go with that, right? A lot of education. You have a phlebotomist that pulls blood out. It's a 2-week certification, all right? A diver certification, if you push through, you might be able to get through all of it in a month if you're back-to-back. Okay, but then, of course, becoming a master diver, that's different because you need at least a certain amount of hours in the water and recorded. Okay, a doctor, how much schooling do they need? Besides their bachelor's for general education, besides their bachelor's in general education, how much schooling do they need? They need 4 years on top of their 4, which equals 8 years on average. Okay, what do the doctors learn anyways? Medicine. Do they learn therapies? Can everyone hear me clear? I'm making this point very clear. Do doctors learn therapies? No. So why would you be asking a doctor, what should I do for this or that? Because the 9 out of 10, they'll give you a medication. Am I right or wrong? 9 out of 10, they'll give you a medication. They won't say, okay, well, you're going to need this. You need to exercise more on your hip. You got to do this. You got to do that. They'll give you some suggestions, but most of the time, they won't show you. What they'll do is just refer you to a rehabilitation program that specifically studies rehabilitation. Right? That's good. Okay, but 9 out of 10, they'll try to just throw out a medication. Okay, all right. What is the point I'm trying to make here? You have somebody who has lung disease, so they go on to websites to see what kind of lung disease they have, and then they look at the disease and see what kind of therapies would be best. So you generalize a certain therapy, let's say walking, okay? They generalize, okay, walking is going to help my COPD. And they try to be their own doctor, and they're wondering why they're not getting better. It feels like it's getting worse every time they go to the doctor keeps saying, well, it's progressing. It's progressing. And we get this very often. The point as I'm trying to make is that you don't go to become a pilot just because you want to fly a couple times. It's a change in lifestyle. You don't become a diver just because you want to jump in the water 1 or 2 times. You obviously don't go to a gym just to go in there one time and expect 100% results. You have to dedicate yourself to it. If you're trying to become a doctor, you're going to dedicate a lot of education, a lot of time just being shadowing another doctor. Okay? Try not to be your own doctor, ever. I know sometimes we feel like some doctors don't know much about me or something like that, but you have to also trust the system a little bit, just a little bit. If you're sick, first thing you want to do is what? Call your doctor. I had this talk with my own mother last night, and she said, Alex, can you come over with your stethoscope and see if I'm okay? And I said, Mom, do you feel short of breath? She says, yes. I said, okay, are you congested? Are you coughing anything up? She says, yes. I said, do you have a fever? Yes. Then you go to the hospital. Well, just come over and check my lungs. I said, Mom, I didn't go to school all these years to just check lungs. You're asking for my professional advice? I'm telling you to go to the hospital. And she did. And now she's back. Okay? Versus she waited and waited and waited and waited until everything is just worst case scenario, and she has to be in the would have to be in the hospital for more often than just a few hours. Okay. So let's talk about pneumonia. Let's talk about traveling with COPD, and especially for the holidays. Let's use this board really quick.
Alex, before we get into that,
go ahead.
I have a question from Marlene from South Africa that I think is pretty important.
Sure, please.
For not just her safety, but for all those that are hearing impaired.
Sure.
She says, I hope you can answer my question. I am from South Africa. We have we have daily frequent power outages. She says power load shedding. So I guess that's power outages. And she's on an oxygen concentrator during the night for sleep. And she is deaf and says that she can't hear the oxygen alarm. What should she?
That's a great question. So, all right. The first thing I would think, if there was a lot of power outages, a lot of them, and this might not be feasible. I'm just giving you an answer, and I could have other answers to it. Okay, so I could have a generator, a backup generator for my home. I could have that, right? You have this problem where you're wearing oxygen. And the problem with wearing oxygen continuously is there's a lot more problems than people think. You wear oxygen continuously, you're getting used to the flow. And then after a while, you don't even realize there's airflow coming through that nasal cannula because your body's so used to having that. So you think it might be off. All right? You think it might be off or something like that. So some of the most easiest ways to solve this is first, what's the major problem? It's not necessarily the airflow right now, it's the power's going off. So let's say we fix that with a generator. What's another option besides a generator? What's another option besides a generator? You need to supply at least 15 amps. Okay, that's a lot of flow of power. 15 amps, and the wattage has to, the volts have to be at least 120 volts, right? So you have an option of a generator. What's another option for that? What happens if my DME company dropped off a portable concentrator? Could that work? Yes, very much so. Because why? They're on a battery pack. What's the other good thing about a portable concentrator? I can plug it into my car. And the best thing about those type of generator, they can also be powered by solar panel easily. It's just a battery. So there are options out there. Just some of them aren't realistic for some people. But you're having this problem with oxygen. One thing I would do as a clinician, the thing that I would do is I would increase respiratory muscle growth and wean myself off of oxygen. So I wouldn't need oxygen in the first place. Supplemental oxygen. I would need oxygen. I just wouldn't need supplemental oxygen. I would go through a rehabilitation program that gives you at least a high result, high yielding of results. HRN does have that because we're at 98% successful with each and every person. We're very, very highly successful. As long as you work the program, of course. If you jump in one or two times and you just jump ship, you're not going to get a lot out of it. It's just like anything, like I was talking about being a pilot to being a diver, doing this, doing that. You need to dedicate yourself to that to become more proficient, to become better, right? So those are the best advices I could give for those. Okay, is you would have to find a way temporarily, a way to either get a generator or a portable concentrator. So in case one system fails, you have another system just in case. Now, if your system failed, you don't have a portable concentrator, you don't have a generator, then I would do what? You would have to call 911. That's what you really would have to do. You would call 911. You could purse-lip breathe to force the oxygen into the membranes faster, into the blood faster. You could purse-lip breathe to oxygenate yourself better, right, as you wait. But those are the options. Okay. You could join to a pulmonary rehab program to increase your lung functions so your lungs aren't as bad as they were. And, of course, you would need supplemental oxygen after that. That process does take a little bit of time depending on each individual. Some people, it only took like 2 weeks. Some people, it took 3 months for that to get done. You know, there were some people that, I'm just talking about average. But did that help?
I think it helped part of her question. The other part of it was the hearing it part, but I don't know if there's much of a solution for that other than what you had already said with going on the battery pack.
Yeah, I mean, as far as the hearing part of it, it's
might have to talk to
when somebody is deaf or they're blind, anything like that, their physical acuity, like sensation acuity, is enhanced. So when somebody's blind, their sense of touch is very acute. They can feel everything, you know. So when somebody is, let's say, they're deaf, and their sense of smell might be heightened with the constant airflow, and that might not be as heightened. Might be, you know, but I would have to really do an assessment on you. How about this? Anybody in here? How would you like if HRN provided a free pulmonary assessment? No, nothing else, just an assessment of your lung disease. Would you guys like that? Where we can at least talk about your lung disease and what types of options would be best for you, or what would, you know, and it would just go off of your question. We're not going to try to sign you up for a pulmonary rehab program or something, you know, even though that would be the best answer. But really, would you guys like a free lung assessment?
We're getting yeses and pleases and yes pleases.
Let me ask, is Dr. Shaw available? I bet you I can.
I think he might be in with a patient.
He's with a patient? All right. Let me talk to Dr. Shaw, and I think we can do something like that, where we can provide a free assessment. Okay, there's a lot of yeses and pleases, you know, but when we actually do this, we usually get one person that actually calls in to get an assessment. If you actually want this, if we're going to take our time out, because our time is very expensive, you know, we're not going to be charging you anything for this, but our time is very valuable, just like your time is very valuable. If we're going to do this, let's do this. All I'm saying is, would you like a pulmonary assessment? You can ask questions like, I have I don't have a generator, my power goes out. You can go over questions like that. And then we can talk to you one-on-one on best solutions for that. You know, and you can bring up your medications. I mean, I just think this would solve a lot of problems. Because you want to ask specific questions. Sometimes you might be embarrassed asking certain questions. You know, like this, just the other day, somebody was talking to me about intimate relationships. You know, being intimate with their partner and they get too out of breath. There's nothing to be embarrassed about that. You have a problem, you know, with lung disease that it's not giving you, you know, satisfaction, you know, in a sense. I mean, we can go over questions like this. There's no topic that should be embarrassing. We're clinicians. I mean, you should be able to talk to us, no problem. But if you would like that, I have no problem doing that. Free pulmonary assessment.
So to answer your question, Phyllis, the assessment would essentially be just trying to figure out what specifically.
What was the question?
She asked what it would entail precisely.
When you go to a doctor, you ask a question about your health. This would be the exact same thing. There's nothing entailed in it. You're asking questions. You're having a free one-on-one chat with an expert clinician. I don't see where's the problem. There's no catch.
Yeah. So
we're clinicians. So if you would like that, we can do that. But if you're asking questions, though, what does it entail? You're calling us up and asking a question. Hey, I have lung disease. What types of therapies do you think will be beneficial for this specific lung disease that I have? You can ask, hey, I eat this and this and this. Is this good for me? You know, what is the prognosis of this lung disease? My sister has this problem. My brother has this problem. You're just talking. That shouldn't cost anything. We're not charging you anything for that. You know, we're insurance approved, but this is not anything to do with that. This is just a one-on-one talk so you can be more comfortable with yourself and kind of explain what maybe your doctor couldn't explain or you didn't have the chance to explain. You know, we can explain things. We can talk to you one-on-one. I don't see a big problem with that.
Right. So I'm going to put the phone number for our office in the comment section.
What I'll do is I'm going to get with Dr. Shaw. Before we start that, I just got to get, because he's our chief medical officer. So I'm going to get with Dr. Shaw and see if he's, which I'm sure he'll be okay with it. What we'll do is we're going to post something on our, not Facebook group, we're going to post it onto our website. Okay, we're going to post something on our website where you can click on and schedule a one-to-one consultation. Just a one-to-one consultation. You just want to talk about what problem you have, what types of things will be beneficial. You know, you might or might not, you know, have a therapy program for it. You know, it would just be a conversation. That's all it is, just a conversation. We're not salesmen here. All we are is we're, you know, just like how everyone's joining in. You know, you want to get, you know, up to date with different therapies and topics and techniques, and I don't see anything wrong with that at all. And you just want to ask a question just like you are on our live chat right now. This will be the same thing, but it'll be one-on-one. I don't see where, if there is a I don't see a problem. Does anybody see a problem with that?
No, I don't think so.
If you do, please write in the chat section. I'd love to indulge in it, and I don't see the problem of talking to somebody. That's how you ask for help. I mean, I don't see the problem with that.
So, was it Phyllis is asking, like, how would we go about correlating a pulmonary assessment with spirometry or or pulmonary function test? I think this would be the before step and seeing if and everything.
You can bring all your documentation with you on a one-on-one chat.
Yeah.
You can bring all the information you want, and we can just talk about it and see what we can do about it. Look, I don't know what everyone else can do. I mean, I know a lot of clinicians. I know a lot of clinicians. You know, usually clinicians know other clinicians. You know, I know a lot of them. Okay, and there's a lot of good ones, and there's a lot of them that don't care as much. I'm just saying I'm just speaking the truth. Okay. There's some, like a lot of people, a lot of therapists were asking me for jobs. Can I have a job? I said, yeah, but you have to be one heck of a therapist with a proven track record. Oh, sorry. I said, but you're a respiratory therapist. Yeah, but I've never had a day experience in pulmonary rehab. Yeah, unfortunately, there's nothing I can do with that. You know, because we would have to take years upon years upon years to train that person. That's why all our clinicians are experienced. You know, one respiratory therapist, they can do pulmonary rehab, but they might not have knowledge how to do pulmonary rehab. And some of them that do know how to do pulmonary rehab in their facility might not be up to standards. You know what I mean? At least you can get advice or you know, suggestions or something like that when you do a one-on-one talk. So,
right.
I
so this would just be a conversation.
This would be just a conversation. That's all it is. I don't see everyone brings up like there's a problem with that. There shouldn't be any problem. You're asking a question. If you have a question, we have an answer. If we don't have an answer, we'll go to somebody who actually has a better answer. Mm-hmm. That's all I have to say about that.
All right. So you want to get into our topic of pneumonia and the tips and everything?
Yes. Let's go into that really quick. Let's talk about traveling. I'm going to bring up my calculator here. Okay. All right. I know I have savants, but it's a different type of savants than you think. Where's the dark marker? We can use this. Okay. All right, can everyone see the board? All right. So let's say we have an, we can use a concentrator, but let's bring out a bottle of oxygen, an E-cylinder, okay? Does anybody know what an E-cylinder looks like? Let me grab one right here, because I have a bunch right here. I know you're hearing me. There we go. Bring up one. Okay. Okay. I have here an E-cylinder. That's how big they are. It's called an E-cylinder. Want to write that down? I'm going to write that down. That's an E-cylinder. Okay. Let's go over some of the basics really quick. Just basics. Okay. E-cylinder. Tank. It's this height. All right. Now, I have right here a dolly. It's an oxygen dolly. You have a little locking mechanism that screws in. So I'm going to put this into the dolly. I'm going to tighten up the bracket to lock the tank in. So when if it ever falls or it turns upside down, it doesn't fall out. See? And don't worry, there's no oxygen and it's not pressurized right now. That's why I can turn it upside down, because I would probably not do that if it was filled up.
That might be a little bad.
Yeah, just because this actually, E-cylinders are rockets if you put them in the wrong hands. Right here's a control valve. Okay? Now, I'm going to put this E-cylinder, and take the E-cylinder, I'm going to put the control valve. Let me see, this is on the wrong way here. Let me loosen this up. Okay. We're going to pretend this is a pressurized tank. Okay. Now, control valve. On the control valve, I have my pressure gauge. I have my liter flow, my dial to dial in my liter flow. If it's 5 liters, 2 liters, 6, it goes all the way up to 25 liters per minute. So this is the high flow system. This will work a little different because it's a high flow system. But anyways, I fit it right into the E-cylinder. Tighten up my control valve. Now, what did I do wrong? I purposely did something wrong. Or maybe it was an accident. What did I do wrong? I never cracked the tank. That's a very, very good thing to do. Let me crack the tank first. And what does it mean by cracking the tank? Does anybody know? Write in the comment section. Cracking a tank means I'm going to open up the valve for a split second. Just in case there's any debris or anything in there, even with a dust cover, I'm not going to assume that it's clean. So I'm going to crack the tank. What it means is I'm going to take the control valve, the valve on top. I'm going to take this, I'm going to open it up really quickly. Psst. That's it. You just open it up really quickly and close it. Don't open up all the way. Just crack it open. There's a lot of pressure, right? So there's a lot of pressure in here. I'm going to crack it open. Okay. I'm going to bleed out any debris that might be in there. Because if I lodge that debris inside this control valve, then that debris might occlude that hole and there will be no airflow coming through. All right? So I always want to make sure I crack the tank first. Now I'm going to fit this in, take my control valve, and I'm going to tighten the control valve on it. I'm going to open this up all the way. Not like scuba diving. What should I do? Just open it up. Quarter turn is all you really need. Quarter turn. Okay? Now, the pressure on here says 2,500. Did it say 25? Let's say 25. Let me draw in a different marker that's a little darker to see. Easier to see, I mean. All right, so my PSI, pounds per square inch, equals 2,500 PSI. Okay. This right here is what kind of cylinder? E-cylinder. What's the tank factor of an E-cylinder? Does anybody know? If you're going outside, you're going for a trip, and you have an E-cylinder, you should know this information basically in the back of your hand. You should know this information unless your DME company or the clinicians didn't tell you that information. All right, E-cylinder is 0.28. Please write that down. 0.28. I'll go over all this, don't worry. Okay. So the pressure, when I open up the valve, I'm looking at the pressure on the gauge, and it says 2,500. The E-cylinder, the tank factor, is 0.28. I can round up and just put 0.3, but I'm going to do it exactly. I want to be dead on accurate. Okay. Ironic how I said that, dead on accurate, because if it's not, then I'm just joking. I'm kidding.
We're trying to prevent that.
Yeah, we're trying to prevent that. All right. So I have my E-cylinder, which is tank factor of 0.28. My PSI is 2,500 PSI. How many liters of oxygen are you going to be using? Let's say 2 liters per minute. 2 liters per minute, okay? And my travel. So I have to travel from here to North Carolina, let's say, and it'll take 3.5 hours just to drive to one location. Just going one direction. 3.5 hours. I have a bunch of these E-cylinders all filled up. I would like to know how many E-cylinders should I take with me for traveling 3.5 hours, 3.5 hours to go to one location. So from point A to point B, it's going to take 3.5. That means going back, it's going to take another 3.5. All right? Which obviously we understand it's 7 hours altogether. Okay, so 7 hours. Okay, 7 hours altogether. Should we add in the possibilities of traffic? Yes. How much time should we have for traffic? Well, I always say for 1 hour of driving, always accrue 15 minutes minimum, just every hour, depending if you know your location. If you know that, hey, at 5 o'clock or at 8 o'clock in the morning, 9 o'clock in the morning, traffic is built up, then you have an advantage because now you know how bad traffic is. If you don't know, you can always do your little research. But let's say in total, let's see, 15:45. I'll say 45 minutes here, 45 minutes here. Okay? And you know what? What if we have a flat tire? Is there a chance? Yeah. So let's add on total. Total time to add into here is, let's say 2.5 hours, just in case. Maybe I have to make a pit stop to get something. Maybe I have to go to the bathroom. There might be some traffic. So 7, 8, 9.5 hours. 9.5 hours altogether is what we're going to have to travel with. We're going to have to travel 9.5 hours altogether. Okay, so my PSI is 2,500 on this tank. My E-cylinder is 0.28. We're using 2 liters per minute continuously. Okay, going one direction is 3.5. Going the other direction is 3.5. Obviously, going back. And then I'm also adding in, just in case there's a flat tire, how much time does that usually take? And if there's any traffic, I'm adding in 45 minutes to each. Okay, and maybe a little bit extra for pit stops. So altogether, I have 9.5 hours. How many tanks should I take with me? So let's grab our calculator. All right, so I'm going to take 2,500. I'm going to multiply it by 0.28. And that's going to give me 700. Okay? Now, I have 700. I'm going to put this on this side. You can see on this side too. All right, so I have 700. So what I did was I took 2,500, multiplied by the tank factor, which was 0.28, okay, which gives me 700. All right, then I'm going to divide by the liters per minute, which is 2. Okay, so divided by 2, I got 350. Okay, What is that, 350? What do you think that is? The 350. Anybody? Come on, guys. You don't want me to just always give you answers. You want to try to indulge a little bit.
Is that the... I don't know how to put it into words.
What's that?
I was going to say, is that the amount of oxygen in the tank? But
is it? What do you think? Come on, everyone. I'm seeing if there's another tank factor for an H. I think an H is 3.4. Okay. All right. So let me go ahead and get in. Does anybody have answers?
Michelle says, yes, we want you to give us answers.
Come on, guys.
Michelle, that was good, but that's not what we're looking for. This is active participation.
I bring up a lot of questions a lot of times, and I see a lot of people that join into our lives, but the question I brought up beforehand, I bring it up now, and we still don't know these answers. So, I mean, it's fine, but if we really want to get better at things, we got to really roll up our sleeves a little bit, you know. But it's okay. Anyways. So, I have, let's see, 2,500, okay, that's my PSI, tank factor, and I'm using 2 liters per minute. Okay, so, what is that total? That's in minutes. It's in minutes. So, 350 minutes, I'm going to divide that by 60.
Joyce got that right.
Good. 5.83. 5 hours, 83 minutes. So on this one e-cylinder at 2,500, it'll take to deplete the tank. Oh, by the way, I forgot about something here. I am human, you know. On this regulator. Let's see, that's 1, 2, 3, 4. Wow, I didn't expect it to be that much. 2, 3, 4, yeah. Okay, so 400 PSI on here. The needle enters the red zone. What does it mean when the needle enters the red zone? Am I getting close to being empty? No, you're empty. You're empty. Because it takes, for this regulator, it takes 400 PSI for it to work. So, the actual PSI should be 2,100. Did you see that? Because on the needle, I'm looking at the red, and I see 1, 2, 3, 4 lines. Each line is 100. So, there's 400 in there. It takes a certain pounds per square inch to make this regulator work. And if I take a look at it, it has to be at least 25 liters a minute. O2 regulator, 50 PSI before use. Red zone 1, 2, 3, 4. So 4 is empty. Okay. It needs at least a 50 PSI source. With 400, you think, okay, that's plenty. But according to this regulator, empty is considered 400. So, 2,100 is the actual. So let's actually do that the right way. So I take my 2,100, multiply that by what? The tank factor, which is 0.28. And that's 588 divided by 2, because that's 2 liters per minute nasal cannula. That's going to give me 294 what? Minutes. Divide that by 60, and I'm at 4.9 hours. Okay, 4.9 hours. Should I round up and just say 5 hours? No. You want to be dead on accurate. This is your life we're talking about. You want to be dead on accurate. 4.9 hours. Okay. How many tanks should I get? Well, obviously, if it's for one tank, gives you 4 4 hours and 4 hours and 4.9. So tank 3,000 on that. All right. So see. So should I bring 5 tanks? What do you think? Well, if you did the math, of course, you would notice you only really need 3 tanks. Okay. Why do I have an extra tank? I mean, technically, it's 9.5 hours. This is 4.9. All I really need is 2 tanks. Why do I have an extra tank? Just in case. You just have a backup, just in case. Now, you have 3 tanks that you have to bring with you. Where do you put the tanks? In your car. Where in your car?
Definitely not in the window, the back window ledge.
Where would you put it?
Well, I also don't want to say the trunk either because...
That's a number 1 right there. Never the trunk. Ever.
Yeah.
Why not? Okay.
I know the answer in the summer
It happens
months.
6 times a year on average that cars blow up because the regulator, as the tanks are rolling back and forth, sometimes the regulator opens up and it lets pure oxygen there's pure oxygen in there. It allows pure oxygen to go in there, and then of course you just cause a little bit of ignition and the whole thing blows up. I know it's not funny. It's not funny, but that it does happen 6 times a year on average. That was the latest one a few years ago. I'm not sure what the current statistics are.
So we have the consensus of the back seat. Some are saying standing up. Some are saying laying down.
Laying down. You don't want them standing up. Why do we have a dolly? Because if this dropped, all I would need is a nice little hit right on that regulator. Just a nice little hit on that will crack open. I'm not kidding. I've seen these things physically. I have physically seen these things go through walls. Okay, it actually happened. It spins first. It spins like tremendously, and then just takes off. Especially when it hits and it realigns itself, and all the pressure is pushing. This is a rocket. It is a rocket. Don't look at anything else. It is a rocket. And just like a good rocket for NASA, it's filled with pure oxygen. So yes, it's a rocket. But never in the trunk of the car. You definitely want them laying down if possible. If you have more than 1 tank in your car, 1 tank is probably okay. But if you have 1 tank in your car, you don't want it in a trunk. You want it either in the back seat or something. Okay. You could also actually put a seat belt around it. Okay. You could put a seat belt around it, but you don't want them in your trunk. And if you have them laying down, let's say in the bed of your truck or something, I think that's fine because it's open space, right? It's open, it can vent. If you do have it in the back of your truck, you definitely want to have some kind of cushioning in between tanks, just in case they hit each other, and
And also ratchet strap it down.
Yeah, you can. That'd be great if you can ratchet strap it down. So in a car, you just in the back seat is fine. Front seat, that's fine too. But just make sure that temperature. You don't want a high temperature. I'm not talking about you yourself. If you have a temperature, you go to the hospital, of course, right? Or you call your doctor if you're getting sick. But I'm talking about the inside cabin temperature. Can't let it exceed a certain temperature. Even a small increase in temperature, the expansion of the tank, the pressure will start increasing. But tank pressure, it's
you want to be
nothing
aware.
to play with.
So you want to be aware of the heat in the car as well.
Oh, of course. Because a lot of people, what they'll do, and what happened was, why you don't leave them in the trunk, is that they'll open up the vent. Sometimes they'll crack open when you're driving, and as soon as you turn on that the trunk opener, once you turn that on, if it's electric, it can cause enough static and cause enough electricity to actually explode. And
So is this different at all in the winter months compared to the summers? So I know in the summertime we covered it. Don't leave them in there because the heat from the
winter months won't have a problem with heat.
Yeah,
it'll have a problem with being cold. If there's a lot of water vapor, let's say you went inside your car and it's, let's say, 0 degrees Celsius, okay, 32 degrees Fahrenheit. Let's say it's 32 degrees, okay, and there's some condensation, or maybe you had let's just say you had a humidifier or something that created some vapor. Well, the condensation or even the water vapor might be cooled when you leave the car, might cool down too much and might freeze the cylinders itself, especially the control valve. So humidity is an issue with these control valves, because if you have too much water in there and that water freezes, it might occlude the orifice. But I haven't really seen that happen too often. Through my experience of 25 years in this, I might have only seen one time that has, I'm sorry, 2 times. That has actually happened 2 times. I remember it was 2 times. One was actually a liquid oxygen reservoir. Liquid oxygen versus gas oxygen is different.
So Alex,
very, very cold.
Rita says that sounds really scary. I don't think I want anything to do with tanks. Can you calm her nerves a little bit?
Well, I mean, these are things that save your life. But just like anything, like let's say you have a knife to cut meat, or you have a knife to cut some vegetables or something like that, right? Can that kill you? That knife? Of course it can. Would the pain be horrible? Yeah, of course, right? But it's how we use it. We educate ourselves on what not to do. Right? So anything that you have it can be potentially harmful to you. A pencil can be harmful to you, right? So I know a tank sounds scary, but if you just really understand that these are things that we handle all the time, it's not as scary as you think they are, but if you're using something not properly, of course it could cause a lot of adverse effects. Just like sodium, you have too much salt, what happens? Kidneys start shutting down a little bit, right? Fluid retention. Too much of anything will hurt, right? Too much temperature will hurt. Too low of a temperature will hurt you. Too high of a temperature will hurt you. There's a lot of reasons. So don't be afraid of something like a tank, but just be cautious of what to do and what not to do. Now that I'm giving you some information on what to do, especially a tank factor, which is a very important part, especially when you're traveling in the winter, or any time, really, not just the winter. Okay, so
thank you, sir, for
no
answering
problem at
that.
all. No problem at all. So yes,
we have about 2 minutes left.
You have 2 minutes.
So
do
you want
more time?
Yeah, I know. You're just full of knowledge today, and everybody. And Rita is saying thank you. She says she's really enjoying today's live stream. So
thank you.
Thank you
very much.
Thank you for that compliment, Rita. Anyway, before we sign off,
you want to go? Anybody have questions? Or do you have a question, John?
So I do have a question. So, in terms of bad habits that we've gotten into post-COVID, I know I have. I'm sure that you have as well. That everybody has. So, my question is, what tips can you offer to get out of those bad habits with this new pneumonia that is showing up in other countries?
Okay, so let's talk about this pneumonia really quick. There's a new heightening of, I don't want to say a pandemic and scare everybody, but there's something going on with other countries that have a different strand of pneumonia, different strain of viruses, and different strands of. So my point is that just like with COVID, you want to stay separated, especially when you're out and about. Okay, as far as habits go, so what I'm saying is social distancing. 6 feet away, that type of thing. Wear masks and stuff like that. That's proper. Now, as far as habits, we have to understand what a habit is. Everyone should understand what a habit is, right? It's something it's a mental problem that we've developed that kind of takes part of our life, right? It could be smoking a cigarette, it could be drinking, it could be, how we walk, how we breathe. Shallow breathing is a habit. So how do we overcome a habit? By learning a new habit. Maybe a proper habit. So let's say if I breathe shallow, I would have to encourage myself to breathe deeper and keep that going and making it a habit, becoming habitual, just making it a habit. But as far as habits, that's the best answer I could give you. You have to relearn a new habit and make that a part of your life instead of the old habit. And it will work. Understand the word I just used, will. It will work. But you have to do the work to get there. So if you develop a habit, you don't like the habit, let's say it's shallow breathing, you would just have to try to breathe in deeper and make that part of your life. Not super deep, just deep enough to satisfy oxygen and CO2 retention, just to get rid of more CO2, bring in more oxygen. So you would have to learn a new habit. Will it work after one day? No. It might take 3 weeks. If you do a good job, yeah, it should only take 3 weeks to develop the new habit. But it's constant reminders of just reminding yourself, just constant reminders. But that's the best advice I can give you as far as habits.
So remember the little things that we learned from during COVID. Wash your hands.
What's the Turkish twist when it comes to washing your hands? Does anybody remember? That's right. Turkish twist.
I've actually started doing that.
Have you?
Yeah, with actually washing my hands regularly. I do
Is it a habit now?
It is a habit now and I feel honestly cleaner. As much as weird as that sounds, when I'm washing my hands, it feels cleaner because I feel like I get.
How many times did you get sick this year?
Probably maybe once or twice, but that's pretty usual for me.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it also doesn't help that I have a 4-year-old nephew in daycare, so he.
No worries.
So
no worries,
little germ factory.
Yeah.
No, but in all seriousness, though, but yeah, that is a habit that I've gotten into. Also, not being afraid to wear masks.
Yep.
If you're sick, or if I guess if there's a spike in COVID, for example, not being afraid to wear masks. Can you think of anything else?
Nail beds when you're washing your hands. If I bring up 2 soaps, and one's antibacterial, one's regular soap, which one's better? They both are. Not one is better than the other. One aids more, but it's a regular soap will just work just as well as antibacterial soap. But just having that type of knowledge is pretty simple. But you have to develop a new habit, maybe more reading. That was a habit I had to break. Was I wasn't reading enough. I thought I was reading a lot, but I guess I wasn't reading enough. So I had to develop a habit, and I just took my keister to a library and just started reading it again and enjoyed it. And then started reading more than just one book a week.
So, before we sign off, Michelle has a question.
Please.
Which one is the best mask to use? I think that hasn't changed.
N95s are going to be the top level N95 masks. It's N95. N95 masks are going to be the top ones.
You can usually get a big pack of those on Amazon and stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, you don't want to look like Dustin Hoffman in Outbreak with a whole complete isolation gown and everything to go into a room, or else they're going to look at you.
I feel like that may have been an option at one point, though, the big nuclear suit.
Yes, the hazmat suits.
Yeah.
The complete, you look like an astronaut or something, or a mad scientist. But that's it. That's all we have for today.
That's all we got, folks. So thank you so much for tuning in. Alex, thank you. But it's time for us to tune out. So
please look at our website. We'll after I talk to Dr. Shaw, I will get on work on it for that free consultation where you can at least talk to a clinician without any obligation of signing up anything. We're just asking questions, just talking one-on-one. Okay? If you guys said yes, which a lot of people did, then there should be no problem.
Also,
okay?
remember to keep up to date on our social medias.
Yes, absolutely.
Else. So, all right. Well, thank you so much, Alex.
Thank you.
Adieu, adieu.